Oh, that's a shot. What a way to start your episode. Love the lighting as well. Danny Trejo's character? Tortuga? The turtle? Oh, is this how we're gonna see, you know, how he got his head? Love the way some of these shots are shot. Framing and everything, man. It's gonna be the turtle, isn't it? Oh god. Oh! The pizza. Now, it's been 2 months since I've last watched Breaking Bad, but I pretty much got the name of that character, Mike, because I'm pretty sure the show hasn't really mentioned his name.
Walt, are you in the house?
That's the comedic timing of that.
I'm back.
No, you're not back. Walt, you're not back. Get out of there.
This banter between the two. There's a comedic flair to it.
Right hand to God, I will tell them.
Do what you have to do, Skylar.
There's a sense of sadness in Walter's calmness. And he continues. Regardless. Walter's playing some mind games here. He's like, really? That's your best move, Skylar? That's really? Okay. Like, I wonder how the police are gonna, you know, react to this. Like Walter's not really, you know, disturbing anyone, is he?
Dad's here?
Great, he's home.
Dad!
Oh, wow. Wow, that's great. That's great. Oh, that looks delicious. Oh, look at these two.
I got her, honey. Oh, come here. Here we go.
I'm sorry, ma'am. All I see is just a loving father.
Is it possible maybe he's broken any laws that you know of? Anything at all? Anything that we can work with here, just tell me. Even if you just got a suspicion of wrongdoing, I can work with that. I'll get him out of the house for you.
The opportunity presents itself. I mean, of course she's not gonna do it. There's too much emotional baggage for now.
It's the family hotline. I'd really look into some counseling.
Love these shots, man. The back and forth between the perspective of Skylar and the perspective of Walter, from like how distant they are and yet so close they are within the room. I love that. I feel bad for Walter Jr. though.
Interesting decor. It's subtle. Old minimalist thing never really blew my hair back, but hey.
Kind of like a prison with the bars just hanging over the house.
If you get the maestro cooking again, I'll make it worth your while. Call him.
All for personal gain, right, Saul? Not really about Jesse or Walter, but it's about you. It's about Saul himself. He sees the money, obviously, and he wants that money back. And that's why he's pressing them on. There's this really unique relationship between the two. Between Saul and Walt and Jesse.
Hey, if you're trying to sell me something, I've got 4 little words for you. Do not call list. However, if you're cool, leave it at the beep.
Oh. Damn. That was Jane, wasn't it? Hey man, that's just an old lady, man. Oh, that cut gave me chills. Okay. I was about to mention that, but Of course, of course.
Entonces estás trabajando con este Heisenberg.
No lo
Not
conozco por ese
anymore.
nombre, pero sí.
Choosing his words carefully there.
Estadio. Todavía ganamos.
Everybody's against him in that shot.
Señores,
Dude, these shots are great.
estoy involucrado con este señor.
This episode has one of the best shots in this season, especially.
Lo necesito vivo.
I don't want him alive, I want him dead.
Te recomiendo que termines tu negocio con este hombre rápidamente. Arriesgas perder el apoyo del cartel. Eso sería imprudente.
Yeah, that would be not wise at all. But it's crazy though. Like an entire cartel against a single man, right? Just kind of goes to show how much power Gus really has against all of them.
Got 4 little words for you. Do not call list. However, if you're cool, leave it at the beep.
Okay, this is getting hard to watch. Jesse. Smells the smoke. Yeah, I just realized that. Skylar, you're smoking in the vicinity of a baby. I'm no parent, but I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to be doing that. I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to be doing that as well.
Skylar, I can't advise you
Yeah.
properly if you don't give me all the facts.
Everything is going against you unless she tells the truth. And the fact that she isn't telling the truth, the secret shows that she still cares for Walter to a certain extent. She gonna say? She gonna say it?
Husband makes meth.
She says it.
I don't want my son to find out that his father is a criminal.
There's the conflict. It's not about Walter, it's about Walter Jr. Oh, that is a shot if I ever saw one. Kind of almost rivals the Walter shot in the bathroom.
Since when can't we handle a couple of dirt balls?
Come on, man. Courtesy call. What if Vice is running some kind of undercover off?
And especially, you know, knowing that he's gonna be back at El Paso. I love that we are seeing more and more of like the inner conflicts between the characters. Hank, hey, Hank. Like, we don't even know if these guys are actually dealing. Oh, that. These hard cuts, man. Jesse, you cannot keep listening to these, but oh man, it's so depressing to see this. Cinematography in this episode has been phenomenal, by the way. Michael Slovis has done an excellent
Hey, if you're
job.
trying to tell me something, I've got 4 little words for you. Do not call.
The number you have reached 1494985 in area code 505 is no longer.
Reality has finally hit you. Wow. It's even sadder because I feel like this is just to show that there was no actual recording of her at all. Like audio recording of her. Or even video recording that Jesse could reach or obtain, and that is the only piece of her left in this world that he could cling on, and then it just poof, disappeared. Oh man, this episode is great! Hey, Gomi got your back, man.
Is that you left your gun under the seat before you went back inside?
Interesting. Interesting. Kind of getting that. I'll talk about it later. Fuck me, these shots are
His
great.
college tuition for Walter Jr. All that I've done, all the sacrifices that I have made for this family, all of it.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal acting.
I'll be here when you get home from work. You can give me your answer then.
Man, what a scene. Interesting to note is that Holly is pretty much in a lot of the scenes where Walter is revealing the truth, right? The point I'm trying to make is like Holly is the only one other than a Skylar who knows about Walter's secret, and yet she is still a child and she is unable to probably remember all of this. Here we go.
Hey, some coffee?
her reaction when she was coming in, that cheeky little smile from her, it's like, I know what you guys did.
Honesty is good, don't you think?
The uneasiness in this scene.
I fucked Ted.
Boys, dinner.
Iced tea?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lewis?
Yes, please.
All right.
Honesty is good, but it can also hurt. Great episode. Great episode. What I was talking about in regards to Hank was that I felt like him leaving his gun on the seat was kind of, because it is purposeful, but it does feel like, how do I put this? Like, if Hank, got hurt or whatever, and he is basically defenseless in that regard because he doesn't have a weapon or a gun to help him out, then it's fine for him because it's like he wants that. He wanted that to happen, like it's almost as if he is inviting death, is what I was trying to say. Anyways, great episode. Yeah, that was an incredible episode. It was probably one of the best well shot episode of the show, in my opinion. Like there's so many good shots in this episode, like especially shots of like the characters on opposite sides, from Don Salamanca and Tuco's cousins facing off against Gustavo, and then of course Skylar and Walter. Like there's so many of these incredible shots that just elevated the scenes a lot, and it's just so good to see that. It was really great. Aside from the cinematography, the editing as well in this episode has been really, really good. Times where we hard cut to, like, let's say the chicken farm that Gus has, that's like some of these shots and these cuts are just, they really get to you. But of course, above all else, the writing of this specific episode is definitely the standout. The emotional conflict that these characters are going through, while it is of course always present throughout the entire show, I feel like in this episode it is the main star, right? We have a couple of episodes where the emotional conflict is, like the centerpiece, and this is one of those episodes again. But man, especially in regards to like Skylar and Walter, obviously, but then you also get a bit of Hank's inner conflict as well, was a nice, addition to this episode that I feel like is necessary, considering that now Hank's storyline is kind of tied indirectly, or well, I guess it is directly tied to these cousins, right? The Don Salamanca, Tortuga in the past as well, and now the reveal that Tortuga died because of them as well. It just goes to show like how much bigger the world of Breaking Bad is, and how much more, not just intense, but how much more terrorizing the opponent is. Like, of course we got like Walter and his dilemma in regards to his family, but the other world that he is dealing with, the world that Heisenberg is in, is far more death-defying, and not just not death-defying, but far more deadly, dangerous. And yet, despite all of that, the conflict between him and his own family is still going to be the one that will hurt him the most. Having trouble like picking out which scene is like the best scene in this episode, while also trying to figure out, okay, which shot do I want to use for the thumbnail, is pretty hard because there's a lot of really good shots. Honestly, I was stuck between like the shot between Gustavo and Don Salamanca and the shot with Walter and Skyler, because those two are the standouts. But in terms of like emotional feeling, obviously the Walter and Skyler part is the one that is probably gonna get like the win here, but who knows. But speaking again in regards to Skyler, well, I have talked about this before in the past, of like how at first, in the first season, I can totally understand Skylar's, like point of view, her own feelings towards all of this. Like, it is understandable, like why she is feeling that way at that time. And then I see some of the, I guess, revelations from like the community behind Breaking Bad, like some of the fans, some of the comments, and even watching like some other reaction videos out there of like seasons 1, and reading through those comments, and how apparently a lot of people dislike Skyler. Because at the time I was like, what? No, like why do you dislike Skyler? Like, it doesn't make sense for me at the time, because at the time I was looking through Skylar's lenses, and I'm like, yeah, I can totally understand why she would feel this way. I can totally understand why she would act that way. Now that we are venturing into the third season, now all of those things that I have kind of predicted and theorized at the start is coming into fruition, right? The divorce. Now we're getting the is it really cheating if she just admitted to the truth? It is cheating, right? The affair that Skylar just had with Ted, right? It's honestly, I really understand why a lot of people dislike Skylar. I really do. But at the same time, it's like, I still understand why she would do these things. Like, all of the things that she has done is, under any circumstances, would be things that I would totally despise, right? It's like, how dare you betray your husband and such. Like, even Walter, up until this very day, is still loyal to his family, right? He has done a lot of really bad shit. He killed people, he murdered people, right? He has done a lot of illegal activities that may probably, put him to life imprisonment. But he still cares, and he still is loyal to his family, and that is one thing that has not changed in regards to Walter. Whereas with Skylar, we are presented to a very different act of evil, I would say, of like disloyalty. She is no longer loyal to Walter. She does not trust Walter anymore. She also just pretty much betrayed Walter by having sex with a different person, right, with a different man. But at the same time, it's like, okay, she does all of these things, and these are all pretty bad things, and I pretty much condemn all of these things, but at the same time, I also condemn a lot of things that Walter did. So now it's just a matter of dilemma between which of the moral issue is more evil. One would say that Walter's act is more evil because he has, again, like, he murdered people. That is an act of evil that is pretty much universally agreed upon to be very bad. But at the same time, from a narrative perspective, right? I don't know, that's kind of like odd to say, like, you killed people, but from a narrative perspective. But from a narrative perspective, the people that he killed, right? You can make the argument that they are bad guys. They are the bad guys, right? In when we're watching stories, you see all of these like superheroes who kill people, but the people that they killed are the supervillains. So, is it an act of evil if you are disposing other evil, or are you becoming evil yourself, right? And that is the thing about Walter White. He is inherently becoming the villain. He is becoming this evil character, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to label him as such because the evil acts that he is doing is for good. Whereas Skylar, on the other hand, she is doing all of these evil acts because she just wants to fuck Walter up. She's doing these evil acts for evil. And yet the evil acts that Skylar does could not possibly go up against Walter's own evil doings. So it is this really fascinating and interesting discussion to be had that I am inviting people, like if you are watching this, if you're still watching the discussion right now, like if you have your own thoughts on this matter, go ahead, leave a comment down below. I would love to hear other people's perspective on this matter because it is a matter that I think we have reached a point where it's starting to get more and more difficult to choose a side. I'm sure a lot of people will still probably choose Walter's side because of the fact that currently at this point a lot of people apparently still dislike Skylar after all of this, and I'm sure, and I'm at this point it's kind of clear that Skylar is probably gonna do more really fucked up shit that will kind of push Walter down even further. But then again, it's like it's kind of hard. It's really hard to compare the two. But I think that just goes to show how geniusly well written this show is, because it is sparking these types of discussion where it's kind of hard for me to choose between the two and which one is, in the right. But from the way it is structured, like from the way this show, or at least in this episode is structured, it does feel like it is going against Skylar. Like the narrative is kind of going against Skylar, probably because Walter is the main character, right? He is the main character, he is the protagonist, he is the character that we as an audience are trying to relate to the most, he is the character that we are following. Therefore, if something bad happens to Walter, we should feel sorry for him. Should. Well, yeah, should, not must. It's not that we must feel sorry, but we should feel sorry. And that is where like the moral dilemma comes in, and that is the thing that is being challenged, right? Should we actually feel sorry for Walter? But aside from that, like, again, the difficulties between the two, and of course, like how incredibly well written these two characters are, and of course the fact that we are kind of, again, like the narrative, as I said, is kind of painting Skylar in a bad light because he is the one that, also from like an acting point of view, like the way Skylar acts versus the way Walter acts. Here in this episode, of course, Walter is trying to be this really innocent person of like, Skylar, please, I'm not please, I'm sorry. Look, I'm telling you the truth. Here, look. Here's the money that I have accumulated. Look, I'm not telling lies anymore. I'm not keeping secrets. Look, here's the truth, right? And it does push a lot of these like sympathy points of like, oh, you know, like you gotta feel bad for Walter, right? Because he's showing his best at the same time, right? Especially with Walter Jr. kind of backing him up of like, Mom, please, come on, you're being a dickhead here. Like Dad is doing all of the best that he can. Like something like my dad is great and all. Oh, it's so hard. It's so difficult to compare the two, which is why I'm very curious to hear and read other people's opinion on this matter, because I think it is really, really fascinating the way they pair the two up. So incredible episode. I love this dynamic between Walter and Skylar. Other characters beside them, Jesse, throughout this entire episode, I really enjoyed the scene, or at least the shot of his room with the bars at, you know, at the top, kind of showing that he is kind of like in a prison sort of setting, even though it is his house, it is his home, but his home feels like a prison because he feels confined. He feels like the outside world doesn't really want him at all. Like he's not accepted. The only thing that ties him to the world is Jane's voice, and that voice is now gone. And now he returns to the RV, right? That was the last shot that we saw of Jesse, which I find very, very poetically beautiful. And then of course we talked a bit about like Hank and his paranoia, his PTSD, his relationship with basically not just the DEA, but like the whole promotion thing of like maybe being promoted to, you know, somebody who solves these cases may not actually be good for me. Maybe it's a bit too much, you know. And again, like I mentioned during the end credit scene, the fact that Hank left his gun on the floor, and I correct me if I'm interpreting this wrong, but from what I am seeing here is that Hank, obviously as a DEA agent, has a gun. He left his gun on the car, right? I remember seeing that. Never mind. I remember seeing that shot of him. I was commenting of like how good the sound design was at the time. Yeah. So he left the gun there. He went into the building, and then he began his I guess his duty as a DEA agent. But what I was saying at the end credit, and I guess I'll elaborate a bit further, is that he purposefully left that gun. He purposefully left probably the only item that could save his life during moments of crisis, right? If those other people that he was fighting also had guns, then Hank is defenseless, right? He has no means to defend himself at that point, but unless he surrenders. It kind of goes to show that Hank pretty much is done with life, and that is pretty much depressing. It kind of goes to show, again, my own interpretation, but it kind of goes to show that Hank is pretty much done with life. He's pretty much saying, hey, look, man, if today's the day, then so be it. And it's just really sad and disheartening to see all of that, considering Hank is the happy-go-lucky character that, you know, that always brings out the jokes, that always brings some levity to it, but seeing him being pushed down into this state is really, really disheartening for me. It really is. And now he's being called back to El Paso and all that. It sucks. It sucks. Hank needs to face this problem, this issue that he has, this self-trauma, right? The same way as Jesse needs to deal with all of this. and they're dealing it within their own ways, right? Jesse deals with it by going back into the RV, by going back into making the meth, right? Even though he doesn't really want to do it, but that is his only means of escape, right? It is him escaping reality. But what about Hank? What is his escape from reality? That remains to be seen. And I guess the last thing that I will discuss in regards to this episode is, of course, the dealings between Don Salamanca and Gustavo, and how Don Salamanca absolutely wants Heisenberg dead. Like, of course he would. But of course, Gustavo is like the one thing that is like kind of keeping Heisenberg alive at this point. Like he is. Gustavo is the only person that is essentially keeping Walter alive at this point, because he needs him. Even though they cut ties, they cut deals with him, come on, we know that is not going to last forever. We know how the formula works at this point. We know how the cycle of the show is gonna be. Walter is gonna become a meth deal, is gonna produce some meth, he's gonna make some deals, Walter's gonna make some money, he's gonna realize that, oh no, this is bad, and then he's gonna call it quits, and then he's gonna get roped back in, like it's the saying, I thought, he thought he was out, but then they pulled him back in. Like that's just how it is. So we're currently in the phase where Walter thinks that he is out. Now that Skylar just told him, the honest truth of, hey, I fucked Ted, haha. Are you happy now? Do you want a divorce now? Huh, Walter? At that point, Walter's probably gonna think, well, fuck you, Skylar. I'm just gonna make more meth. I'm just gonna escape all of this bullshit that you just made, so I'm just gonna make more meth. Come on, Jesse. So everything is tying up nicely. Everything is going to a direction where is benefiting certain characters, such as Gus. Like, Gus absolutely wants this to happen, right? So now the question is, where is Gus going to stand amidst all of this? Can Gus keep Walter alive throughout the entire show? Because he is going up against Don Salamanca, of all people, right? We know that Tuco is crazy, let alone his cousins and his uncle. Oh boy. So it is going to be interesting to see the dynamic between Gus and Walter moving forward from all of this, because now we know that Gus is keeping Walter alive, technically speaking, right? So if anything goes sour, Gus can just say, yeah, okay, I'm not gonna protect you anymore, Walter, good luck, and then just opens the door to Don Salamanca and the cousins as well. So that is going to be interesting to see. Really looking forward to the next episodes of Breaking Bad. This episode is probably one of my favorite episodes of the entire series, if I'm being completely honest, just because of how much this episode is progressing the characters and the narrative itself. So, really great episode, fantastic, lovely. Thank you all so much for tuning in and watching my reaction and my discussion. If you have reached this point and you have not subscribed or liked the video yet, go ahead, please like the video and subscribe. Early access available on the Patreon as usual. And I will see you all next time for the next episode of Breaking Bad. Take care, have a nice day, peace.